Department of Public Information. I'm here as part of the IGF's team for the press team for the IGF. Today is the third day of the Internet Governance Forum. Yesterday, there were a variety of lively discussions, including on network neutrality, crowdsourcing, spam, and connecting those currently without access to the Internet. Discussions continue on a broad range of topics today, including the Internet and climate change, cybercrime, online child protection, privacy, and accessibility and disability. This morning's main session focused on the evolution of the Internet governance ecosystem and the role of the IGF. The main session this afternoon will wrap up on the Best Practices Forum, forums, which have invited the global Internet community to share knowledge and wisdom on 5 topics, which were spam, online child protection, security responses, localizing content, and multi-stakeholder participation. Each of these 5 discussions focused on successes and failures to tease out and highlight best practices for each topic while paying attention and giving respect to a wide range of social, cultural, political, and economic factors. A summary on each best practices forum is expected, and these draft summaries are open for anyone's comment until tomorrow. The summaries will be published after the IGF concludes, and they are considered to be key outcomes of the IGF. As you know, tomorrow is the final day of the IGF, and there are still many events occurring today and tomorrow, including on youth and internet governance, online freedoms, and human rights, to name just a few. Tomorrow morning's main session will be about taking stock, and there will be an afternoon open mic session followed by the closing ceremony at 4 p.m. in the main meeting hall. So as we know, the IGF is an open and inclusive and transparent forum for dialogue on public policy issues related to key elements of Internet governance. And we bring together a variety of stakeholders to participate in the IGF, and one of the largest and most diverse groups are participants from civil society. And to get a little perspective on civil society's role and its interests at the IGF, I'd like to welcome Deirdre Williams to join me to share some of her personal views on civil society at the IGF. Thank you. And you may recognize Ms. Williams. She was the key speaker for civil society at the opening ceremony on Tuesday. And Ms. Williams is the co-coordinator for the Civil Society Internet Governance Caucus for the Caribbean ICT Stakeholders Virtual Community, or what's called CIVIC, and she hails from St. Lucia. Ms. Williams, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. The IGF, I've been lucky enough to attend every IGF since 2008 in Hyderabad. I went to Nairobi in my night dress at 3 o'clock in the morning on my computer from my home in St. Lucia. So although it wasn't perhaps on my agenda, one of the first things I'd like to point out is the importance of remote participation for people who come from rather remote places, as I do. In fact, immediately prior to this, I was acting as remote moderator for the Access and Disabilities Dynamic Coalition, where there were people from all over the place following the meeting and taking part in the meeting, although they're not in Istanbul, they're not in Turkey, they're in Australia, everywhere. So in their way, they come from remote islands as well. For the small island developing states, a forum like this is very important, but for us it's difficult. Half of the people who might have come to Istanbul are actually in Samoa at that meeting. Funding is always a problem if you're coming from somewhere rather far away, and the people like the Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union is actually at the meeting in Samoa, so she can't be here to do what she had originally planned to do here.
Okay. I guess if there are any accredited journalists, I'd be happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I just might have one or two follow-up questions for you. If I guess, since you've been to several of these IGFs now, what do you think is the sort of general role that civil society can play at these IGFs, and what do you think brings civil society to these kinds of forums?
Anybody who was listening to what I said at the opening ceremony will perhaps realize that I have a very general perception of what civil society is. I think for each one of us, no matter what else we are, if we're government, tech, it doesn't matter, everybody, in fact, also has a say as far as civil society is concerned. So the IGF provides a wonderful forum to bring in all of these different points of view from all over the world and from all different sorts of people. I think I've missed the point of your question. Maybe
No, that's fine. Yeah. I think it's just important, for the forum we try to offer that space to civil society. And
yes.
If you're happy that it's given.
And the wonderful thing about the IGF is that it has had children. So over the last couple of months, I attended the Latin American IGF in El Salvador and the Caribbean IGF in Nassau. And now I've come here to Istanbul for the global IGF. So all of these ideas are being pulled together into one space. The IGF, what the IGF does is bring all these people together. When you look at it from outside, it's not something tangible. You can't say this is the outcome of the IGF, but it is a very large, embracing thing to happen. Now people know each other. When I'm sitting in St. Lucia, maybe watching the news on television, there's been a disaster in India. It's not people, just people. They're real people. They're people I know. There are people I know who might be affected. And I think that is a really, really valuable outcome of these meetings generally, and for me, the IGF in particular, that it shrinks the world and it turns people into friends, people from all over.
And I guess just two other kind of follow-up questions based on what you were already talking about. With the small island developing states, what do you think are some practical approaches that people can take to I know that you've mentioned the remoteness of these places and giving them greater access to the internet. How does that happen, and how can getting access to these small island developing states sort of improve their development and livelihoods?
Well, to turn the question on
Sure.
its head to start with,
Sure.
we had a workshop first thing on day one from small island developing states. And it was amazing how many people came into the room to help us, or with offers of help ready. The small island developing states don't always get a lot of attention, and certainly at the IGF they are only now emerging as a group with something to say and something to do. I've lived in St. Lucia for 40 years. When the internet came in St. Lucia, it was wonderful. Oh my goodness, we can have access to reading material that wasn't possible before. I can work with people to produce papers. The children, the school children in St. Lucia, can see the rest of the world. If you live in a little island, it's sometimes very difficult to imagine how things are outside. But now, with the internet, the whole situation is opened up. There are bad things about it too, but this is this should be a positive meeting. So let's not think about the bad things about it. Let's concentrate on the good ones. And for the improved access to the world and its knowledge, ICT is wonderful. The internet is wonderful. The St. Lucia is special because it has two people from St. Lucia have won the Nobel Prize. And on my card, I have a quotation from one of them, which is maybe, he said, "The fundamental cure for poverty is not money, but knowledge." The he who said it was Sir William Arthur Lewis. He won the first prize for Nobel Prize for Economics in 1979, and he's from St. Lucia. And that's what the internet brings us, knowledge.
That's great. And just to sort of switch gears slightly, you mentioned that you'd attended a workshop on accessibility and disability. I wonder if you might want to just tell us a little bit about what that was like and how we're trying to get access to people with disabilities.
The first IGF I attended in Hyderabad, I had a friend with a horrible disease called ALS. She had her smile and she could move her eyes, and that was all. So when I went to the IGF, I wanted to see if there were things that people knew about that would help her. And since then, I've been sort of involved with the access and disabilities people. This morning, they were discussing, but we forget, we think it's all about the internet. It's not all about the internet. It's also about where there's a lift, whether you can open the door properly, whether there's enough room in the bathroom to maneuver. Issues like this, for people coming to these meetings, they have to be considered. And the IGF Secretariat spends quite a lot of time trying to work that out and make it work well for people. But if you don't have a disability yourself, it's sometimes difficult to imagine where the problems might come up. In terms of real access, though, we found an eye tracker system for my friend, and she could talk again. And that was really amazing,
Yeah.
yes.
I think, unless you have any other closing comments.
Just that I hope that the IGF will be allowed to continue. I find it's very valuable. I think it sounds corny, but really we do need all of us all over the world to get to know each other better. And this is, the internet generally and the IGF specifically are very good ways for that to happen. And perhaps if it happens quickly enough, we will be able to avoid something really unpleasant coming down the line.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much, Deirdre, and thank you all for attending. I really appreciate it. Have a good day. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Was that?
Yeah, it was perfect.
Oh, thank you.